I'm Pete Rick.
And I'm Tim Myers. We believe success in life is dictated by your mindset and your daily habits.
Our goal is to share actionable information that will help you reach the next level of success in every area of life.
Now let's dive in.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
I'm doing phenomenal. How about you?
Good. Just a couple technical difficulties for Rick Peters, but hey, nothing we can't handle. I give you all the credit in the world because I don't do the technical things anyway.
Yeah, I need to start. I like the podcasting, man. The podcasting is fun. It's easy for me now that we've done a couple episodes. I know what I'm doing and we can do it a lot faster. So today we have decided to talk about one of our favorite people, Ed Mylett. He has a book that is coming out tomorrow called The Power of One More. Tim and I agreed prior to the beginning of the show, if you like the show, if you like our show, if you like Ed Mylett's show, if you want a copy of the book, The Power of One More, reach out to us. The only thing we might ask for is maybe if you like our show, share our show. We'll buy you a copy of Ed's book because I think Ed Mylett has changed my perspective, maybe my life more than most people. He's truly been a mentor from a distance for me. And I know, Tim, if you want to talk about your experience coming across, like how did you first come across Ed Mylett? And let's talk through the book intro and what our favorite parts of this interview were.
Yeah, I mean, so Ed Mylett, for people that don't know, I mean, he's a highly influential figure in the, if you want to say self-help, self-improvement space, which I feel like is nowadays getting pretty saturated. There's a lot of profit to be had in writing a book or getting into that niche. But Ed is somebody who has definitely, through his life experience, helped, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people now that he's on social platforms. But yeah, his impact on me, I discovered him probably a year and a half ago, maybe, kind of during my own journey of figuring out what I was going to do when I grow up. So he's been really helpful in trying to just figure out some specifics of, my life, what I want to happen, my values, my beliefs, etc. But he's somebody who, when you listen to him or watch him or see him interact with people, you can tell he's just a very, very good person. And he has some very strong, I would say principles to live by.
And I think a lot of successful people do. Right. I think a lot of successful people know who they are and are pretty good, if not absolutely excellent, at articulating that. And that is a way not to become successful, but it's a quality of success, because if you aren't able to clearly articulate who you are because you don't have a very strong value system, you're most likely not going to have the confidence to act in a way that is going to be required in order to be that successful. And you won't attract the right people to you that want to help you in your mission, so it's my opinion. But let me give you the intro to the book. The book is called The Power of One More. And I'm reading this off the, Amazon YouTube description. So Ed's saying, I wrote this book to honor my dad. He was a kind and loving man who battled alcohol addiction early in my life. Throughout my years, my dad became the person who had had the most profound influence on my life. After he beat his addiction for 35 years, he taught me lessons, many of which are in this book, and they're lessons that I still use to this day. I wasn't expecting Jamie in this interview to ask me about what I struggled with the most growing up. I had to think about it, and like a lot of people I know, I had to fight through so many kinds of constant fear. Fear I wouldn't fit in, fear I wasn't good enough, fear that I would be found out as an imposter, fear that my dad would get hurt while he was drinking, or God forbid, he would accidentally hurt someone else. I'm going to tell you how I've leveraged a life full of one mores to become successful. And so that's just the brief synopsis. There's a whole lot more that I'm not going to read through.
Very good synopsis too, because it at least initially it dives into this interview, which you'll put a link in the show notes to for this interview. It's an hour and 10 minutes. I mean, I'd recommend or hour and 38 minutes. I'd recommend everybody watch it because it gives you, from anything I've seen of Ed Mylett, it gives you a very deep dive of like who he is as a person, and he is very vulnerable in front of millions of people, and he's just another person. Now he's worth $500 million if that's important to you, but the reason that is so is because of what he's been able to provide people in his following. So
correct, and that's something where, you know, and here's two of them, right, where we are just interested in his message, and there's a whole lot more in this book than what I just described in that, you know, 2 little paragraphs about the interview. So, you know, what I just said is about the interview. The book has a lot of business strategy. It has a lot. It's, you know, a couple hundred pages. So to lead off, Tim, what is the power of one more? What does that mean? What is it reflected in your life as? Give us some examples in your opinion.
Yeah, I would say personalized version. If you want to get the version, you know, from Ed, read the book and watch the video.
Well, and that's what I'm asking though, is like the power of one more. What does that mean to you?
So for me though, I mean, I would say, at least lately too, this has been a big thing is, you know, we get so caught up in what maybe our long-term vision, our long-term goal, where we want to be in 3, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years. You know, it's so easy to get caught and consumed in that you lose track sometimes of what you need to be doing on a regular basis to execute towards that future that you want to have. So for me, you know, it's very helpful to just say, okay, what can I do today? And what am I going to do today to work towards all of those things that I want for myself, my family, etc. And if you break it down on a daily basis and you just tell yourself, get through today, do this for one more day, and you wake up tomorrow, same thing. All right, let's do this one more day. It's one day at a time. And it takes away a lot of the anxiety and fear of thinking of this overwhelming long-term pie in the sky thing that's going to happen in 2 years. Yeah. Break it down to daily digestible things, and it becomes so much more manageable. I mean, we're only in this present moment anyhow. So if you're going to think about your future and cripple yourself with anxiety and fear, you're not going to do yourself any favors. Just speaking from experience here.
Well, what's an example? Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, then, okay, Ed's vulnerable. Can Tim be vulnerable? What's an example in your life where something you have now wouldn't maybe have happened if you didn't do like the one more, if you didn't try, if you didn't show up one more day, if you didn't, maybe it's a job, or I don't know, relationship wise, or like just something.
So I'll give you,
I don't know.
No, I'll give you a good one that just kind of came to mind. And I will say it wasn't one more day, but it was just get to this next time period. And so I remember when I was a freshman in college, so I did ROTC in college, Army ROTC. And my first semester, I was like, "Ooh, man, I'm not really sure." Like, I had a bunch of instructors who were amazing people, but they were intense. And I was an 18-year-old, pardon my language, shithead who was drinking, partying, you know, at Miami, Ohio. And I got my ass handed to me by these war veterans that were like, "You are going to follow these things and you're going to be good." All right. So it was a little more intense than that. But anyway, after the first semester, I'm thinking to myself, geez, I don't know. This may not be right for me. And I talked to my dad, and he said, "Tim, just go to the end of the semester. Just give it the 1 year period. Right. And then if you don't like it at the end of this, you can leave if you want. That's totally fine." Yeah. So what I did is I stayed through the rest of the year, finished out the full year. And at the end of it, I realized this is the right path. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is great. And then fast forward 8 years, and that's kind of the end of the story for my military time. But had I just said, "No, No, I don't want any part of this because it was getting hard. I would have never had any of the experiences I did have. So that I'm grateful for. And that's the power of maybe not one more day, but one more semester, one more period of time.
Right. And that's the concept too. So it's one more, it doesn't have to be one more day. What did you just say? If I hadn't stuck with it for one more, I wouldn't have had, you know what I mean?
Like if I would have just let my emotions, my fear, take over and say, this is uncomfortable, because it's not comfortable to be an 18-year-old kid and have grown men scream at you in your face. Like, that's not a normal feeling, and that's not comfortable. But get through that, and what's on the other side? Well, I mean, the last 8 years of my life have been the other side, and I wouldn't change it for anything. So, right. But if I had just not gone through that next 3 to 5 months, I'd have never known what was in store.
There's a lot there too, and think through as well, where it's, number one, you turn to your dad, and not to relate it to Ed Mylett, but there's a lot of examples of that in the book, whether it's your father, your mother, somebody in your life, having someone to help guide you when you feel stuck. And, that's a very good fatherly, things to impart, right? Where it's like, just stick with it. You signed up for it.
Right.
The concept of like, you're not trapped into this. I believe in your ability to finish this. We finish what we start, and we do what we say we're going to do. There's a lot more life lesson stuff that is just right under the surface of that one emotional phone call, because your dad's wisdom and just experience, and he was, you tell him, he was in the military as well. Mm-hmm. Rank wise, I can't remember, but I know it was up there. What was it again? Brigadier General.
Yeah, he retired as a colonel like 2 years ago.
Yeah, which is what, one or so, like right up.
Yeah, right below general. Yeah.
It's quite high ranking military official. Yeah. Anyway, he has seen what you're experiencing potentially thousands of times. And so he's seeing it in his son, you know what I mean? Where it's like, don't cut yourself short of the experience that I know is right on the other side of this suffering.
Right.
And it's, and you think about that as, I guess we're adults in air quotes now. And he probably wasn't too much older realistically, you know what I mean? Where it's like, yeah, you were 18, 19. So he was 10, 15 years older than you are now. But my point is, like, I think through those things now, okay, what is the power of one more day, one more phone call? And I mean, that's a gigantic example where that shaped like the outcome of your life, at least to this point. And well, here's the thought too. So off of this, where it's like, don't make permanent decisions based on the temporary discomfort.
Yep.
Is mentioned in this interview, and something I learned years ago. Actually, I learned that in a suicide prevention class related to work in the healthcare field where I used to work, as a thing to say to people. If you ever find yourself in a scenario when you happen to maybe be in the room in a hospital and there's something going on and you're the only one there, and it's just like something to say. Yeah. To try to help people pull them out of it for a minute.
Can I, because I'm curious as to what your definition is as well, but real quick, because you just made me think of something that I have been thinking a lot about lately, and I kind of enjoy it, and that is that everything is transitory in terms of what you're feeling at a certain time. So right. Whether that's good or bad. So if I'm super overwhelmed with work, I mean, this is going to pass. It'll pass in minutes, hours, maybe days, but it will pass. Same thing with like an amazing time, right? Now, you don't want to think a good time's going to end, but it will. So like the fact that just everything is transitory, it gives you a sense of peace, knowing that nothing's going to last forever. So that's, could be in work, life, whatever. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, but
everything's transitory in that way. But back to what I said at the beginning and what you said, really, that I said off of what you said, everything's transitory, but success often comes through the people that are grounded in something. A lot of the time it's faith. I mean, The Rock posts on Instagram where it's like 4 a.m. His anchor is the phrase, right, at the gym. It doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m. or 4 p.m. He's there either time. So my point is like having the flexibility to let the things kind of move through you, but still being grounded in your own faith, whatever that is for you, whether that's religious faith in some denomination capacity, whatever, whether that's exercise, moving your body, meditation. The power of one more for me, like the simple work related example I just thought of first off was, I have a couple floating around, but the easiest story is, if you do it enough times in a row, it'll happen for you. To bring us to where you and I currently are now, I was floundering starting in real estate in 2019 into January 2020. And I looked back in my calendar before we did this. So January 28th, 2020, 2 so years ago, I had been a real estate agent for like 5 months. So I'm at year 2.5 right now ish. Went to Spoonwood Brewery because Kevin O'Loughlin with Movement Mortgage, shout out, sponsored by Kevin O'Loughlin. We're not, but we should be. He held an event and I met Durbin and DJ there because I sat next to them and they were answering the questions the same way that I, thought that I would have if I had been called on, and reached out to them afterwards through Kevin, set up an interview. And I've mentioned that to you before, but it's just like earlier that day, it was a Tuesday. I don't know what I was doing on January 27th, but I remember that I was hungover and it was 2:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. And I was laying on the couch in my basement. And I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what to do. I am so lost. I'm afraid. And I have to just keep doing stuff. And that fear will overtake you one way or the other. And I went to the event. I didn't really talk to that many people. There's a video clip because Kevin does it with me now too, but he asked me to like, hey, what did you learn today? And like Cody filmed me, and like, that's where I met Cody, the guy who works with us in a videographer capacity now. And so I met Cody, I met Durbin and DJ, and I became more, connected with Kevin and his team, all people I work with on a weekly basis, daily basis at this point, from one thing. Mm-hmm. And, it didn't all happen right there. Like we didn't have like a team meeting, but it was just one of those things where, oh, well, now you know what I mean? I work with those guys in such a close capacity now. The power of one more, if you do it enough times in a row, it'll happen for you. It's the one more phone call. The other work example in a faster summary is the second house that I sold was a $29,000 duplex in Brentwood. And it turns out that the woman who purchased that $29,000 duplex bought a $450,000 house off me last year in Mount Lebanon and has subsequently bought other properties because she's a real estate investor and she's connected me with other real estate investors. And this was my second transaction ever, where she at one point told me, and she didn't know this at the time, but at one point told me, she's like, I have never seen someone work harder for a $29,000 duplex. Little did she know I didn't have anything else to do. But at that point in time, I was like, this is my baby. I will carry it to the end. And it's just like that level of dedication, the power of one more, where it's like, I was just trying to make sure I got that one. I wasn't trying to focus on like, what can I get from this, woman in the future sort of attitude. Like, I'm not looking for referrals, but I did such a good job that when I asked for referrals, she was like, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a natural byproduct. And I mean, I think that power of one more, applied to like everyday life, at the gym, one more rep in sales, one more phone call. It's just training you, I would think, to just increase your baseline a little bit more each time and then get through some pain and discomfort in the present. And then when you do that and you get some results because of it, you're just going to build some confidence with yourself. So
yeah,
I think, at least me personally, I am one of the hardest people to please with myself. Like, I don't I'll be much different towards somebody else, I guess, but we are always going to be our biggest critics, in my opinion.
Well,
so that's a way to help you out in that regard, I would say.
Yeah, I too am relentlessly self-critical. So with that thought, though, the power of one more for me is the power of rippling decisions. And, so that concept of the power of rippling decisions, that's the power of one more. Ed Mylett's dad was an alcoholic. Someone helped him. Mm-hmm. Someone helped Ed's dad. Without that, Ed would not be who he is, and you and I would not be here talking about it. And hopefully someone hears this in some capacity, reads the book. We'll buy you the book. Don't forget that. I'm serious. Just like message us. Our numbers and emails or everything are in there. The power of rippling decisions, he wouldn't be here, nor would you and I be doing this right now. And what if through us, someone else could benefit as much as we have from, and it's wild. How if you really want to get existential, you can go down the rabbit hole, but I think it's the power of rippling decisions. Be aware of your effect on people. It matters a lot.
Definitely.
So,
definitely. Yep.
Yeah, it's those little details that carry through the day. So do you want to keep going through some other topics with your thoughts on that one and then wrap it up just to keep the episode short as far as like maybe other topics you learned from this interview?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to this end of last week. There's been a lot that's gone on in between then. But I mean, I'm at least amazed at how he was able to share his story very, very vulnerably and just get into specific details of his life. But I mean, this is a real life example of somebody who, we were kind of talking about this earlier, Pete, was somebody who, he kind of found his story through helping others, probably around our age, around 30, after he, dropped out of playing baseball and then worked for a boys' home and providing care and help to them. He found his passion in helping people. And so fast forward 20 years, he's as successful as he is because of the fact that he sought out to help as many people and have an impact on as many people as possible because he wanted to emulate what his dad did during his dad's life. So I would say, I guess the takeaway that we can all learn from this is when you focus on adding value in terms of just genuinely caring and helping for other people, everything else will fall into place. Yeah. As opposed to if all you're giving a shit about is getting wealthy or how can I use or exploit this situation or person to, make some monetary gain. That's completely backwards. And that's a lesson I think if you don't study it now, you'll get humbled by it probably at some point in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you very much. I think that something you said stands out. It feels like just the concept of vulnerability. Let's talk through that and end on that. So with that, something that I had come to terms with, not come to terms with, but something that I had learned maybe through Ed, maybe through just growing up a little bit, from the time you're in your 20s and now 30, going to be 31, June 11th, Gemini season. But vulnerability, you cannot have bravery without also having vulnerability. That's Brene Brown, which is different, but she's been on Ed Mylett's show. And so with Brene Brown talking about that with Ed Mylett, number one, I have been exposed to so many other beautiful minds, books, people that learn from through him and other shows like it, where I've gone down the rabbit hole and learned so much from other individuals in a million different walks of life. But through vulnerability and being comfortable talking about anything, you have authenticity through that as well. People connect with you much deeper. And again, just the phrase, like, there is no vulnerability. There is no bravery without vulnerability. There's no bravery. at all, without vulnerability. Diving on a grenade is the most vulnerable, concept I can think of off the top of my head. To be brave, you need to have the ability to be vulnerable, and to be a leader, I think you do as well, where you need to be able to connect with people. You need to be able to share, hey man, yeah, this is what happened with me. And the more deep and comfortable you are exposing yourself, it's not having like a mask on, I think the better your life becomes.
Yeah, vulnerability and some humility in it. I totally agree. I mean, I would say it's common in, we'll just say in real estate, when you get started out, you just went through a course that taught you how to not break the law, but you don't really know what you're doing in terms of your day-to-day and transacting real estate. You just learned the sales contract. So I think it's common for new salespeople to want to put on some sort of a front and not, show maybe their first few clients. I mean, I was guilty of this. Hey, I may not know everything, obviously, and I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to work very hard to find you the answers and act as sort of liaison here. But I don't think anyone expects you to know everything. And if you think that's the case, that's unrealistic expectations on their part. But just by you being authentic and sharing and maybe telling a little bit of your story, people are going to feel that. It'll be more tangible, and you're going to stand out, and they're going to want to work with you because you're a good human being, not because you can get them a great deal on a, duplex in Carnegie. That helps. But think about it. People are going to work with the people that they jive with more times than not, rather than, hey, I don't really like this guy, but I know he could save me $5,000 on a duplex. It's like me personally, I'll work with the person I like. That's just me, though.
I think everybody does. Everybody, maybe you don't even have that thought.
Right. You don't
consciously. Yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? Where in the sense that, like, I don't even, you don't move through your day usually being like, I like this guy. You know what I mean? Where it's like something happens, you connect over something, and whether it's happening consciously or not, you're like, okay, this person's hearing me and they're understanding what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And something, again, too, that's from Ed Mylett, where he just talks about on his show, not specifically in this interview, and I'm sure you've heard this at some point, Tim, where it's like going golfing. He's one to ask a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And he's going golfing with these guys for like a business, lunch. And by the end of it, the mutual friend in the golf foursome is, calling Ed later that day saying, oh yeah, John Smith, who went golfing with us, absolutely loves you, but he just realized he doesn't really know a whole lot about you. Is there another time we can set up a meeting to further the business that we originally wanted to talk about? Because all you did today was listen to his stories about his kids and ask questions about his family and his interests. And then, it builds from there, where it's like, authentically, I'm curious, I'm learning, I want to know about you. I genuinely care. And in this interview with Ed, he lives in California. He's very successful. He's saying like, hey man, I don't love your jet. I love you.
Yeah, I love that part.
I want to learn more about you. And so maybe to finish, like, talk about maybe your experience, and I'll maybe think of something too, but like Instagram, I'm a multi-million-dollar producer. It's like,
right.
I don't care.
Yeah. It's, and not to rag on our own industry in real estate, but
there's a lot of personification, puffing your chest out. Where it's like, okay, do you know what you're doing? Do you care about me? Are you listening to the needs that I'm telling you that I have, that I like? Show people that you care. Right. That's what I.
Yeah, and I think like people should go based on how you make them feel, not, hey, he has a pretty nice Range Rover, I think we should go do business with him. It's like, really? You're going to judge our interaction based on my vehicle or my clothes? That's not really the right way, in my opinion, to gauge somebody. But you have an interaction and they make you feel good and valued and important, then that's really the most important thing. So I think social media has made it so everyone needs to have this great big, personification of success. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I don't know.
And to that though, too, just the devil's advocate, if that person who sees the Range Rover agent drive up, looks at that Range Rover, looks at how that person is dressed, feels connected to them because that's what matters to that person, that is just a different version of what you and I are describing.
Right.
And so it's one thing if the person does not connect with that person in the Range Rover. Range Rover is a great car. I want to freaking.
Yeah, I don't have one, by the way. Just so.
If the seller of the house is looking at the real estate agent's car, says, all right, that person has a successful persona, so that must mean that they are good. And that is where I think you can screw yourself, because just because they have that does not mean they are good. There's a very good chance that it does. But that's what I mean by authenticity, where most likely the seller who looks at me, if I wore jeans, whatever, shorts, and they're like, that guy had shorts on, he must not know what he's talking about.
You wore jorts to a listing.
I wore jorts, yeah, jorts and flip-flops. I don't own jorts, just for the record, but I could. If someone doesn't connect with me because I have shorts on at a buyer appointment, which I would not wear shorts to a listing appointment, but anyway, that is just a different version of what we're already saying, I think, where it's like, if someone authentically connects with you, that's the goal.
100%. Cough it out, Peter. Well, I think that's probably a good way to end the show here. Again, we will provide you a copy of the book if you'd like. Just reach out. The Power of One More. It's released tomorrow on the what is tomorrow? The 1st of June. All right.
First. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.